Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that, let's be honest, pretty much all of us have wrestled with at some point. We are talking about the delicate balance between love, anxiety, and space. We're going to completely demystify relationship anxiety, look into the psychology of attachment styles, especially that notorious pursuer-distancer dynamic, and uncover why the secret to long-lasting satisfaction might actually be giving your partner way more space, not less. Okay, let's dive right into this with a really brilliant analogy from researcher Dahlia Johnson over at BYU. She remembers learning to drive as an absolute nervous wreck. You know the feeling: tense shoulders, white knuckles, a total death grip on the steering wheel. Well, her dad pointed out that trying to white knuckle the car into the lane was actually making driving harder and honestly way more dangerous. She needed to take a deep breath, loosen her grip, and just lift her gaze. And here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. The exact same principle applies to romance. Trying to white-knuckle your relationship actually creates more danger and anxiety. So, Section 1, the urge to cling. If a death grip is so bad for us, why is it our very first instinct the second we feel insecure? Let's look at the psychological roots here. It largely boils down to a concept psychologists call anxious attachment. This is basically a relationship style that's rooted in an intense fear of abandonment. And look, we really need to normalize this because it is incredibly common. The general consensus is that anxious attachment develops way back in childhood. If a caregiver repeatedly or even just inconsistently fails to meet a child's needs, that kid learns to constantly worry that their loved ones are going to eventually turn away from them. And then they carry that relational panic right into adulthood. You might actually recognize this as the love fern effect. If you've ever seen the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The main character acts out all these anxious attachment behaviors on purpose, calling nonstop, reading into every tiny little action, and literally wailing when her guy forgets to water their quote-unquote love fern. It's hilarious in the movie, but in real life, this kind of emotional overreaction turns minor relationship friction into a full-blown wildfire. You find yourself desperately trying to hold up every single wall of the relationship at the first sign of a tremor, whether it's real or entirely imagined. Which brings us to Section 2, pursuer and distancer, a truly toxic dynamic. Because the thing is, this anxiety doesn't happen in a vacuum. It triggers a very specific, well-documented reaction from our partners. And here is how that loop traps so many couples. Step 1. When stress hits, the anxious partner, the pursuer, pushes really hard for closeness and reassurance. Step 2. The other partner, the distancer, feels smothered or uncomfortable with that emotional demand, so they withdraw. Step 3. The pursuer senses that distance, panics, and pushes even harder. You can totally see how these two roles just feed right off each other, right? The pursuer becomes needy, demanding, maybe even hypercritical. And the distancer responds by actively seeking physical and emotional distance, basically just checking out from the stress. It's this terrible cycle of miscommunication. The harder the pursuer pushes, the farther the distancer pulls away. Both people probably really want a strong relationship, but they're dealing with stress in two completely incompatible ways. Real talk for a second, we need to deliver a bit of a reality check. According to family researcher E. Mavis Hetherington, couples who get stuck in this pursuer-distancer mode are actually at the highest risk of divorce. The stakes of not breaking this cycle are literally relationship ending. If left unchecked, it just breeds resentment and contempt. So, how do we break out of it? Section 3, expectations. Let's look at how our own internal expectations actually set this whole destructive dynamic into motion. Check out how this builds on our understanding of relationship satisfaction. We have some fascinating data from a study on romantic relationships that visually tracks the discrepancy between what a person expects and what their actual reality is. See that gap? A wider gap, meaning a larger distance between the communication quality you expect and what you actually get, drastically lowers your overall relationship satisfaction. If you expect your partner to be this flawless communicator who anticipates every single need, you are setting yourself up for major disappointment. And that ties right into a super interesting study from Northwestern University by Elaine Shung. She found that people who distribute their emotional needs among multiple sources have a significantly better quality of life. The big takeaway here is you have to stop making your partner your emotional jack of all trades. Relying on one single person to be 100% responsible for your permanent well-being, it's smothering them and it's suffocating the relationship. Get this. Author and couples therapist Dr. Dan Weil notes that a staggering 70% of quarrels stem from an inability to accept a partner's mistakes and unsolvable problems. 70%. A healthy relationship isn't about perfectly crossing every single problem off a list. It's about accepting that when you choose a long-term partner, you are actively choosing a specific set of unsolvable problems. Which leads us to a pretty profound, almost existential question. If you stop trying to fix all their flaws, and you stop demanding they meet every single one of your emotional needs, can you love someone without trying to possess them? To answer that, let's get a little philosophical with Section 4, Authentic Love. We're going to look at the insights of 20th century French philosophers Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre. These two spent their lives dissecting the exact nature of freedom and love. Simone de Beauvoir argued that what society so often calls love is actually a trap, a setup, where one person completely submerges their existence into someone else's. Instead, she proposed the concept of authentic love. Authentic love is founded on the mutual recognition of two liberties. It's a non-submissive, totally non-possessive relationship between equals. True love isn't losing yourself. It's a joint project where two complete people share their lives while maintaining their individual boundaries. Now, what's really interesting is the stark contrast between these two approaches. Inauthentic love is what Beauvoir called a total abdication. It's that intense desire to merge identities entirely, to possess the other person. Sartre called this living in bad faith. Authentic love, on the flip side, absolutely demands autonomy. It respects separate projects. It basically operates like a democracy of two free individuals who are consciously choosing each other every single day. Now, I know what you're thinking. This kind of freedom is utterly terrifying. To an anxious mind, we can call this the Sartre threat. Jean-Paul Sartre noted that the other will always have the freedom to stop loving you. If you try to secure their love by objectifying them or possessing them, you destroy the exact freedom you fell in love with in the first place. An authentic lover actually accepts the risk that their partner could leave at any time, because paradoxically, accepting that risk is the only way true security can actually grow. So, bringing all these psychological theories and existential insights together, we arrive at Section 5, the power of space. This is the actionable solution to relationship anxiety. Maintaining your daily autonomy and having some space does not mean your relationship is failing. Quite the opposite. It means two individuals are thriving. This even includes what researchers call positive conflict. That's when partners challenge each other's bad faith excuses and actively encourage one another to pursue separate projects. Like if your partner tells you to go take that pottery class or apply for that job on your own, they aren't distancing themselves. They are respecting your autonomy, and that ultimately builds way deeper relational security. Let's do a quick summary of the key takeaways for breaking that pursuer-distancer cycle. To build a truly satisfying, autonomous relationship, you need these 4 components. 1. Treat each other with genuine gentleness and compassion. 2. Distribute your emotional needs among your friends. Seriously, don't make your partner do all the heavy lifting. 3. Respect each other's separate projects and individuality. And finally, accept those unsolvable problems rather than white-knuckling your way toward an impossible perfection. Which brings us right back to our driving analogy from earlier. You simply cannot force a relationship into perfection. By demanding absolute closeness and absolute certainty, you're only going to push your partner away and create the exact abandonment you're terrified of. So the question is, are you ready to loosen your grip, lift your gaze, and actually give your partner the space to freely choose you so you can both finally enjoy the ride? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope this gave you a fresh perspective on love, anxiety, and the truly beautiful power of a little bit of space.